Call this meeting to order. Those in attendance, please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome all of our friends and neighbors and colleagues in joining us in this regularly scheduled November 4th, 2019 City Council meeting. As you come in, that door over there, there'll be a sign-in sheet on the desk. If you're present tonight, please sign your name. May I please have a roll call vote. City Clerk Price.
Councilperson Bell. Briner.
Here.
Beer.
Here.
Morrissey.
Here.
Sharp.
Here.
Stuchel.
Here.
Pratt. Here. Zeiser. Mayor Stockford.
Here.
We have 2 absent.
Thank you, City Clerk. We'll move on the agenda to item number 3, Mayor for the Day. Today we have present with us Mayor Marshall Kalmbach. I've had the enjoyment of getting to spend some time with him today. We got a tour of City Hall and rode on a fire truck and met some police officers, and one of the things that really interested him that he wanted to do was see the wastewater treatment plant. So we went and toured the lovely, lovely wastewater treatment plant. So at this time, Marshall, if you could come forward and have the city clerk swear you in. Come on, buddy, I'll come down there with you. Right over here, buddy.
I solemnly swear that I'll support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Michigan, and that I will faithfully perform the duties of the office of the Mayor for a Day of the City of Hillsdale to the best of my knowledge and ability, so help me God. Okay, thank you.
All right, yay. Kalmbach. Hold on a second, Marshall. I'd like to present you with this honorary gavel. Are there any laws you'd like to pass at this time? No? All right. Thank the Lord.
No taxes.
All right, I will reassume my position as mayor, and we will move on to item number 4, approval of the agenda. Any council members have any changes to make to the agenda? I notice an amended item under unfinished business. Is this, City Clerk, is this meant just as a supplement? Okay. Any changes, ladies and gentlemen? Seeing none, I'd accept a motion to approve the agenda as written.
So moved. Support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey, seconded by Councilman Briner to approve the agenda. May I please have a roll call vote?
Councilperson Briner.
Yes.
Beer.
Yes.
Morrissey.
Yes.
Sharp.
Yes.
Stuchel.
Yes.
Pratt.
Yes.
Mayor Stockford.
Yes.
Got 7.
Thanks, Katie. We will move on to public comment on agenda items only. During this time, the podium will be open. Please limit yourself to 5 minutes at the podium. Please limit your trips to 1 to the podium. Please understand, per our council rules, we will not answer any questions directly while the participant is at the podium. And if you would like, please state your name. Podium's now open.
Joseph Hendy, 181 Rhea Street. I seen on the agenda, I'm gonna kill 2 birds with 1 stone. The 65 Westwood and the code enforcement. I wanted to speak on the demo on Westwood. I don't know Marv, and I'm not denying the house needs work. It just doesn't make sense to tear money down, and that is what this body has proposed. You didn't tear down the Dawn or the Kiefer, which are crony capitalist deals that benefit our college and will still have little to no value to the average resident. What about the Midtown building? And what about the Midtown building? I see windows are missing. Instead, you want to suck grants off the backs of the taxpayers, which is just one more sophisticated name for welfare. We have name calling here by this very body and on Facebook calling Marv a slumlord and a con. This is not only violating Marv's rights, but many before him that the city has enforced ordinances on. I made a complaint on 3 Meadows. The individual lots are not being maintained or developed by economic development, and economic development is the city of Hillsdale. I suggest Marv file a lawsuit against the city and maybe find 3 others and make it a class action lawsuit. The city hasn't maintained those lots in 10 plus years, but wants to enforce the charter on residents? Total bias and hypocrites. The city can't enforce the charter when the city's in violation of it themselves. People like this, and the city's been dragging their feet since programs have started. This town needs cleaned up, and I'm not talking about blight. I'm talking about some of our dishonest public officials. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Any more public comment?
Penny Swan, Ward 4. I'm also commenting on the Westwood property belonging to Mr. Salyer. While I understand we have ordinances in the city and this property has been in violation, there are many, many properties within the city that are as bad, if not worse. I've done some driving around and I stopped counting after 20. I believe the house on West Street that had a fire and a meth explosion happened before Mr. Salyer's fire, and if there was any drug issue there, I don't know if there was or not, but I don't see the city going after that property as aggressively at all than you are with Mr. Salyer. It's not fair to pick and choose who you go after and who you don't go after. Mr. Salyer's been here like the last 3 or 4 meetings, and he's promised to rectify the situation. Why would you not let him, the landowner, fix and pay rather than saddling the city with the cost? Yes, I understand the city would go after, the cost would go on Mr. Salyer's taxes, but the city first has to front the cost. City employees have to make the calls and oversee the project. Those employees can be better used doing other city work, since Mr. Salyer has already agreed to rectify the situation. Can the city really afford the cost and the employee time addressing all of the houses that are in violation of the city codes? I don't think we can. We're always on a tight budget. If you're gonna spend $45,000 tearing this house down, maybe you should spend that money and buy people's leaf bags. That's coming up and everybody's quite upset about that right now. You all took an oath of office to follow the Constitution. Telling somebody what they can and can't do with their own property doesn't sound constitutional or ethical to me. Thank you.
Thanks, Penny. Any more public comment?
Jack McLean. Actually, I want to speak about the airport and what went on a couple years ago about the person that was out there and how the council talked about the people that was posting stuff online about the person that was running the airport. But yet they turn right around and do it about somebody else themselves. I don't understand.
Jack, I don't see this on the agenda, bud. You want to save this for general public
I'm
comment?
actually talking about the comments that are in the minutes about last minute about the 65 Westwood or whatever.
Okay, I will let you proceed, Jack, but please make some sort of direct draw to the items on the agenda.
Okay, I guess I have none about that. My other question is, in the NES from last week, I think, and I spoke to people about this, that NES group should go out to the city limits past Wilcott Street. It goes to the center of Wilcott Street. Why not move it on out to the end of the city limits, which is like 300 feet maybe. It's not that far on out there. The other thing is, in the NES thing, I see it said there was a lot of, well, it didn't say a lot, there was a number of blighted houses in that NES area. I would like to know what the addresses are of those blighted houses, if there really is any in that area. If that's at all possible to get that information from somebody, whoever can give that to me. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Any more public comment on agenda items? Seeing none, we'll close the podium and we'll move into the consent agenda. In the consent agenda, we've got approval of bills, city claims October 3rd, BPU claims October 3rd, BPU WWTP claims September 19th. Payroll of October 31st. Our council minutes of October 21st, the finance minutes of October 21st, 2019 Christmas Light Up Parade information. It's exciting, that's coming up soon. Equalization and Land Information Service Agreement Renewal, quarterly investment report, code enforcement report before and after 29 Superior Street, August 2019 financial report. Is there any discussion any council members want to have on any item on the consent agenda? Seeing no discussion, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
So moved. Support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey, seconded by Councilman Briner to approve the consent agenda. May I please have a roll call vote, City Clerk?
Councilperson Veer? Yes. Morrissey?
Yes.
Sharp?
Yes.
Stuchel?
Yes.
Pratt?
Yes.
Mayor Stockford?
Yes.
And Councilperson Briner?
Yes.
7-0 approved.
Thank you, Katie. We'll move into communications petitions. Item A, Hillsdale County Senior Center. Director Veer.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be on your agenda this evening. But before I go through, you all have purple packets in front of you, which is a wealth of information, and I will not read you word for word because we'd be here all night. But just by a show of hands, how many of you have been to Perennial Park, Hillsdale County Senior Services Center? That's good. When I first started attending these meetings a few moons ago, there was hardly any show of hands. So in your packet, I will direct you to this sheet. It says Township Municipality Demographics. Township is Hillsdale City. You also have a cheat sheet. Really, there's 2 pages. And when I go around to all of the different cities and villages, this is what I generate. This is specific to your constituents in the city of Hillsdale and how many people we have served in specific programs. And for Hillsdale City, out of 2,970 households, 14.6 or 203 of those households had someone living alone who was 65 years of age or older. Out of the total population of 8,305, 13.6 or 611 of the population were 65 years of age or older. And at the bottom of the second page, you have a total number of 361. And that is an unduplicated count because if you added all of those columns up, you would come up with probably more than 361. And that's because if a client, for example, is receiving Meals on Wheels, they might also be receiving home-based care. They might also be receiving volunteer transportation. So based on the demographics, we have served a little more than 1 out of every 2, which is a very high number of all the individuals that live in the city of Hillsdale. So my goal when I go out to speak to the townships and the municipalities is to highlight that our mission is really to keep people at home. We are a little bit different because there's new people around the table. We're a little bit different than Branch and Jackson and Lenawee in that in all of those counties, they have a Department on Aging under the county umbrella. We do not in Hillsdale County. We function as the Department on Aging, even though we are a private nonprofit. And in fact, if you look in the phone book under the county offices, you'll see Hillsdale County Senior Services listed. But we don't have the advantages and disadvantage. There's pros and cons to that, so to speak. However, the whole mission in keeping people at home so that they can age in place saves economically. People are still paying into the tax base, and we are very fortunate that part of our $2.4 million budget comes from a senior millage that voters approved graciously, generously, thank you. And so out of that 2.4 million, we generate about 1.2 million to cover our services that aren't covered by those state and federal grants, the private donations, et cetera. And the biggest meals that the biggest programs that we provide to city residents is, of course, our Meals on Wheels. We have 84 clients. I like to say that it's as much about the meal as it is about the eyes on. We deliver 5 days a week, countywide, but part of that is the wellness check. So we have some family members who don't live in this area who just want to make sure mom and dad have a meal and somebody's checking on them every day. And so what they do if their parents don't qualify for the grant is they generously say, you know what, we'll pay the $6 a day just to make sure that somebody's knocking on that door 5 days a week. And we like to say that those who can afford help support those who cannot, so our dollars even run further. We're very blessed in Hillsdale County that we don't have a waiting list for our Meals on Wheels program. In other parts of Michigan, it's a 3-month waiting list, and I don't know about you, but I'd be pretty hungry at 3 months, for sure. So the other piece is just a couple things I wanted to highlight. It is now Medicare and Medicaid open enrollment, and I always encourage people who have supplemental, particularly the Part D, to look at that during the open enrollment period that runs until December. We have 3 volunteers and 1 staff that are certified to review what you receive for your supplemental Part D, and I always caution, yes, it pays for everything this year, but next year your prescriptions might not be covered. We had a gentleman last year, he was not going to double check to make sure his prescriptions would be covered. He decided to, and had he not changed his policy, he would have been coming up with about $8,000 out of pocket. So it's a free, takes about 45 minutes. You just have to call and have an appointment for that open enrollment. And that's more money in the person's pocket. Also, I don't need to tell you, Census 2020 is coming up, and that impacts your budget. It impacts the roads. It impacts the school lunches. It also, particularly in the senior citizens, trying to educate them that if they are here 6 months out of the year, we need to show them here, not in Florida or Texas or California, those warmer states. The other and final update, unless you have questions, is that 2 years ago we were able to add an addition to our building and provide short-term overnight respite. We provide adult on-site respite 6 days a week, looking to expand that adult day program to 7 days a week. But in addition to that, now we're able to provide short-term, and when I say short-term, it's only up to 13 nights. We have sleeping facilities, and so we're seeing more and more sons and daughters who are taking care of mom and dad, or maybe a spouse who's taking care of someone who has Alzheimer's, who needs that break. Caregiving is a 24/7 role, and I don't know about you, I have some personal experience with that. It can be taxing at times. And so we have, in addition to our private pay options, we do have several grants, so those people unable to afford it, we have scholarships available. Christopher Reeves is one of the grants, and that is not specific to 65 and older. That is specific really to anyone 18 and older that has a brain injury, is confined to a wheelchair. We had a gentleman last year, 22 years old, came at the same time we were doing our senior prom, and so he was able to partake in part of that fun as well. But the overnight respite continues to grow as people want to keep their loved ones at home. We have a woman whose husband has early onset Alzheimer's, which is a very devastating and long drawn out, unfortunately, disease. She is still working full time. She drops him off 6 days a week. And that one day that she's not working, she gets to take a break. So the whole advantage, or the whole goal of me and other people from the center going out and talking is to raise the awareness, because we have this wonderful resource available. If you have questions on any of the information in your folder, I invite you to give me a call. And if you have not visited Perennial Park, I invite you to give me a call, and I would be more than welcome to give you a personal tour. So, thank you all for your time. I could go on and on, but I didn't know if I had 5 minutes too. I'm sure I went over that, but.
Any questions for the director? Councilman Briner.
I just want to say what a wonderful job you do out there. And if anybody wants to volunteer time or anything, would they be able to contact you or call the center? And
Yes, absolutely. And thank you, Ray, because I know that you have delivered meals for us before.
I would echo Councilman Briner's comments. You,
We count on our volunteers.
Perennial Park's certainly a gem in the community, and had opportunities several times to be out there for various events, and it's always well-staffed and welcoming and warm and cozy, and the food's good, so
I like
appreciate
to
what
hear
you guys
that.
do.
Good news for the day. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. Okay, we will move on in communications petitions. We've got a letter from Comcast in here. Our quarterly newsletter is in here. We've got the BPU Holiday Light Contest coming up, information about our New Year's Eve bash, which, by the way, we're still looking for any donors to help with the fireworks, light up parade, so on. Hillsdale County Economic Report from South Central Michigan Works. Michigan Gas Utilities AMI project, and the information on the New Year's bash. Is there any comments or questions any council members have about any items on communications? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. No introduction, adoption of ordinances, public hearing, so we'll move into old business, street projects. Jake.
Good evening. I guess looking this over, we went ahead and published the remaining items left on the ICE grant program. Went ahead and put that punch list in the packet this week for everybody to view. I am happy to report that item number 1, it still needs to be completed. We anticipate about a week or so on item 1, which is 64 spring and a backfill, a flowable fill on a sanitary main. Items 2 through 8 primarily were sidewalk issues, concrete-related issues. Those have all been completed since this was published. We still need some guardrail at the culvert. We think that's about 2 weeks out. We do have a contractor lined up for that, or a sub lined up for that. The item 10 is indoor plumbing on the Garden, Mead, and Vine section, which is actually on the Garden Street. They have started that on Friday. There were 6 of them to do, and they're knocking out about 1 a day, so I'd anticipate about the end of this week that little portion should be taken care of. The 30-inch interceptor still needs to be plugged, and I mentioned last time that would be done by and also a subcontractor. They were in town today and have done some of the prep work. They cleaned out the existing sewer, made some arrangements to figure out how they were going to reroute and bypass. We anticipate them being completed before Thanksgiving on that portion of it. Finally, pavement markings. We're just waiting for a little break in the weather where it's not raining, obviously, for a couple of days to get that done. They'll probably have to, blow some things off and clean some things up ahead of the painting. Again, nothing major, and also done by an outside contractor. Surface restoration, tree planting. Trees are pretty well complete. I think maybe have 1 left. I think there's some issue about where to place it. The forester and them are working that out. Obviously, some grass still needs to be done, and some terraces still need to be done. But they have made quite a bit of progress, maybe not to the untrained eye, but many of the terraces were very high. They've got all those removed, all the high spots removed, so it's just a matter of bringing in that top dirt and cleaning those up, spreading some grass seed on them. And then finally, we're missing a couple structure covers. Those are on order. We anticipate those here any day. They're just manhole covers. In the meantime, we put some used ones on to hold the place so we can not make interruptions to traffic. I think as far as street work goes, this is the only thing that was really outstanding. The street preservation 19 stuff, I spoke at the last meeting. is all completed. We're finalizing the paperwork on that, as is Hallett and Hillsdale and the mill and overlays and the reconstructs. And I will give you a little update on next year, and that was Fayette Street. Some of you may have encountered some interruptions there on Fayette. I believe it was on Friday. We did some soil borings to finalize some of the engineering plans, so we know what we're getting into, subgrade, dewatering, things like that. So that is taking place, and we expect that to go out to bid early in the spring.
Awesome. Sounds great, Jake. Any questions for Jake? Councilman Sharp?
Terraces and stuff on Ripon. I see piles of dirt dumped in some of them, but still, there's many that haven't even been touched. Who's the contractor responsible for that? Is that Du Bois?
Yes, sir?
Then I've talked to a couple of homeowners, and they said they've seen one guy down there working for about 2-3 hours, and he disappears. That's been their complaint. You'll see him maybe once in a while, then they're gone. They're really getting frustrated because they're worried about winter's gonna come, the snow's gonna come, then everything's gonna stop. They'd like to see it wrapped up. I know you're putting the pressure on Jake, but we got through Halloween safely because of the weather. Kept the trick-or-treaters under control, but that was very dangerous down there. Those kids could have stepped off and gotten hurt, even the adults. I just hope we can get that wrapped up soon because it's an eyesore still down through there.
Well, I hope maybe you noticed items 2 through 7 were all sidewalk repairs, so I put the push on them to get those done first. I felt those were probably of the safety hazards for trick-or-treaters, they're probably the worst. So I was glad they at least completed that portion. They have been working split crews. One guy, you're correct, one guy's typically been over on Ripon, most of the time working by himself, planting trees. If you've been over in the Garden Mead Vine area, Vine is almost completed. There's half a block of Vine left and 1 block of Mead, so they're well over 3/4, 80% of the way done there. And they should be diverting all their forces back over to Ripon to finish it up. That's all I can tell you, other than I'm pushing them as hard as I can. I'm on site every morning, every day, multiple times, phone calls every day, pushing as hard as I can.
Well, I make sure every day when I come home, I drive down Ripon every day, looking to see any progress. I see that backhoe sitting there. It looks like it's part of a tree or something sitting there now. It hasn't moved. But it was encouraging to see the piles of dirt. That part was encouraging, but they've been there for about a week now. I'm just kind of hoping, I don't want to see the homeowners come out there and start raking the dirt over and stuff, but you never know.
Did you, Mr. Sharp, did you see the south block where they'd removed a lot of the excess material last week?
Yeah.
So that was a big accomplishment, so now that's just ready for dirt. So they're making dirt. I know they worked this weekend to make it. They have to run it through the plant to make their topsoil. So I'm anticipating some of that going back down tomorrow, and hopefully a big chunk of this chewed up by the end of the week.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Any more questions for Jake? All right, thank you, Jake. Appreciate it. We will move on to item number B in old business, 65 Westwood Street. On September 16th, City Council held a public hearing to discuss the condition of 65 Westwood Street, which is a vacant residential structure. The attached resolution details the city's effort to work with the property owner to rectify the situation. The owner was given until November 16th to have the structure demolished. We've got this extra information here with pictures. It says, on November 4th, city staff visited the property located on 65 Westwood to check on progress to correct the open code enforcement violations. As the attached photos show, the only attempt at correction was to replace the glass in the front second floor window. The remaining broken windows on the first and second floor have not been damaged or boarded to prevent rodent harborage or to prevent weather from causing additional damage. As of this date, Mr. Salyer has hired a contractor to repair the roof on the structure and has received a building permit for that work. No permits to repair or replace windows, doors, electrical, mechanical, or plumbing have been issued at this time. At this time, it is unlikely that Mr. Salyer will have any repairs completed by November the 16th, 2019 deadline, and it is unlikely that he is serious about resolving all the current code enforcement violations. We also have, and Chief, you're going to have to attest to this in case I make a mistake here. We also have a list of what I think is probably likely Mr. Salyer's rental properties on our desk here. Says the above information is how many times Hillsdale City Police Department has responded to or taken a call from 2015 to present time. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 properties on there, and it looks like there's around 70, 80 calls. 89 calls? 90, so,
Chief did request it, I did.
okay, Councilman Sharp. So you guys have all the information. We can open the table up to discussion. Mr. Salyer, if you've got anything to say, I see you're here again tonight, so you're welcome to take the podium. But the recommendation is to pass this resolution, authorizing city personnel to take such actions as necessary to demolish your property on 65 Westwood Street.
Yes, the contractor got a permit today and I paid him $6,000 to put a new roof on. He said he should have it on within a week and a half to 2 weeks. He has to finish up one job, and then, once we get the roof on, then he's gonna start on the inside. Or he was gonna start on the inside if we don't tear it down. That's about all I have. We're working on it. It's just hard to get people there, and I finally got a guy that'll commit to it, and he said he'd work on it during the course of the winter.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Salyer or discussions, or are you interested in answering questions tonight? You know?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
Yes.
Councilman Sharp?
So are you aware of all these times police have visited these locations of yours? I'll give you the addresses so you don't have the advantage of this. 65 Westwood Street, that's yours, correct?
Correct.
69 Westwood Street,
Correct.
33 Charles Street,
Yep.
9 Berry Street,
Yep.
25 Reedon Avenue,
Yes.
74 Budlong Street,
Yes.
49
No, 74, it's 47
47
and 49,
49.
yeah.
Budlong Street, 16 Vine Street,
No, it's not mine.
that's your mother's?
That's my parents. Yep.
And then 16 and a half would be hers. 24 Vine Street, would that be your mother's?
That's my mother's house, yes.
Okay. so
I don't think we should be discussing
No,
his
we're gonna
mother's
pull- we're
properties
just-
here.
I
Okay.
just want to bring up all the times the police have been there. Are you aware the police have been to these addresses all these times?
I think probably the main issue was 65 Westwood, wasn't it? I don't think they've ever been to Budlong too often. They've had a couple of disagreements between the tenants. I don't think they've been to 33 Charles in quite a while, or Barry. I don't know, I've not seen
Okay,
it. They don't call me and tell me.
No.
But the gentleman that was running from the cops for a long time, the chief probably knows, Caparoni or something like that. Carpani, he lived on the Westwood, and he wasn't supposed to live there. His grandmother and her girlfriend lived there, and then all of a sudden, he come in there and start shacking up. But, I mean, a lot of those issues are probably him.
Okay, but let's go on. 65 Westwood Street, 22 times the police were there.
Yeah, that's correct. That's
It's
what
been
I'm talking
vacant for
about.
2 years now. So it's 22 times from 2015 to present date.
So in 4 years, they've been there how many times?
22 times.
But that
2
was
years
prob-
it's been vacant. The house has been vacant since the fire.
I know that, but I'm saying if 2015 to 2019, probably a lot of those times is that the gentleman that this person just said.
My point's being that it's 22 times, and there's 2 years, we're only talking 2 years' time. 69 Westwood Street, 22 times.
69?
69 Westwood Street, 22 times.
I wasn't aware of that.
Charles Street, 18 times. If you're not aware, as a landlord or a responsible landlord, you'd want to know what's going on with your tenants and your property. You'd want to know. This is one of those things you would say, I want to know what's going on with my property, so I can get. You want to be aware of what your surroundings and the people there. That's something you've got to be responsible. That's what we want all people to be responsible for what you have and you own. And this was FOIA. I requested this to find this information out. It only went 5 years back. I could have gone 10 years back, and there would have been a lot more. And there have been other properties that you owned that you no longer own. 58 and 60 Westwoods or West Street. You used to own those, correct?
Correct.
And that's the one that had the meth fire.
That's correct.
And that's the one somebody mentioned about West Street, and that was one of your properties too. But it doesn't mean you're responsible. It just means sometimes you need to know what's going on in your property, and sometimes you may have to visit it, or just heads up what's going on.
Yeah,
That's what concerns me about giving you more time on this property. I see you're making steps. I've been down this 65. You still got broken windows there. You've got a cat on the second floor. It stuck its head out the windows this afternoon. On the second floor. You boarded up the basement window, but you got wild animals running around in there.
we didn't see any when we was in there when we were doing the 2 windows. I didn't know that, but once they get the roof on and get everything, you know, I don't know if they're coming through the roof or where they're coming, but I'm pretty sure that once we get the roof on, and now I got this contractor, he's gonna stay on it, and we're gonna get it done.
I'm just concerned about all the things, that house is set that long. When you turn the water on, you didn't winterize that house or anything. Everything got shut off after the fire, that was it. So
Yeah.
it's, the money you're saying you're gonna put into it, I think it's gonna be a lot more than what you're thinking. I mean, God bless you, you wanna fix this place up. But I would like to see tenants in there that are responsible and you keep an eye on stuff. So I don't have to worry about, I have the safest neighborhood in the area because the police are always down there. And I don't have to worry about speeders going up and down my road because there's gonna be police cars sitting down there. I'm not picking on you, but I am very frustrated to seeing this going on. We have a nice neighborhood there. And then we have this house sitting there, and I'd love to see it getting done. And I know you're trying to make an effort, but how serious of an effort you're gonna make?
No, I'm serious. I mean, I'm gonna spend $12,000 on the roof, and then we will go from there. I wanna get it done, and then maybe I can just put the 2 houses up for sale. They have a shared driveway, so I have to figure
Right.
the driveway situation out.
It has a nice garage behind 65.
Yeah.
That is a nice garage. That's the nicest thing on the property is the garage. The house could have a lot of potential.
Yeah, it really could. I mean, when you're upstairs and you walk through it, I mean, there's not like feel like you're gonna fall through the floor anywhere in the house. I mean, there's smoke on the walls from, the fire never really took off. It sit there and smoldered on blanket, the Carpathian, I think that's what his name was. He took a cord from the downstairs. His grandma let him move in because she felt sorry for him. And, I mean, I know that's not an excuse, but he ran a cord up there and then it was laying on some blanket and started smoldering, and that's when the fire started. And he probably has a lot of the calls on Westwood Street, honestly. But I'm surprised about the Charles Street, because that's been taken care of, and I just rent the downstairs out, I don't rent the upstairs out, because sometimes when you get the cops called, 2 tenants cannot get along. I mean, today's world, they just don't get along very well. They don't seem to work together like they used to 20 years ago.
Well, another thing I noticed with some of your properties, it seems like a lot of them have broken windows. A lot of broken windows in a lot of these places, Charles Street, Budlong.
I don't think Charles Street has it, but I know Budlong does, and I know you're mistaken on that. I'll take you over there tomorrow morning. I can meet you there at 8 o'clock, and you show me a broken window.
I'll be at work at 8 o'clock in the
I
morning.
will be at
sir.
work also, but I can take off work if I have to.
No, it's just, these things need to be addressed. And they've approached you many times, and it's always like, there's always an excuse. I would hope there's not gonna be any more excuses.
No, I'm trying to move forward, and then maybe I can try to sell them all and go, but but if you wanna tear it down, I don't wanna tear it down.
I don't wanna see it tore down, but I wanna see something, I wanna see progress being made. And I don't wanna hear lip service anymore, I wanna see progress.
No,
And
I'm
I don't
not-
think you're giving me lip service tonight, I think you're making a step in the right direction.
I am trying, honestly. And before, was about not having the insurance, that was not, I wasn't blowing smoke, that was really, we messed up, my wife and I, we just messed up. There's no excuse, we have 6 party stores, we just got a lot on our plate, and we missed paying that payment. But I didn't get a wake-up call from my insurance agent because I think Alan, they knew about it, because my agent called and said he would come and get it boarded up, and it didn't get boarded up, because he called the next day and said, well, we didn't have insurance on it. But at first, he thought I had insurance on it also.
Marvin,
Yes.
Councilman Stuchel has some
I
questions or
just have some
comments he'd like
questions.
to.
Yeah, this is an old song and dance, so just a couple questions for council. One is, my understanding is if we do tear this down, we cannot recover this cost. It's out of our pocket, correct?
It's out of our pocket. It will go onto Mr. Salyer's taxes, and he will have to pay that back eventually now.
Oh, upon sale of property, whatever, it's a lien?
Yeah, that's a
Okay.
lien. Yeah.
And the other question I have is, it doesn't seem like we really have any teeth in our enforcement to help prevent this from cascading to the point where we're at.
I'm
just looking
we run up to a lot of property right issues,
Yeah.
which,
And I agree with, the fact we're a government body and it's a constitutional right of property owners, whatever, but it's also the greater good for those who live in and around their property value as well can depreciate. And it's not right and fair to them to live next to, they could move in there, it could have been 10, 15 years ago to a fairly nice home and it just, starts running down and they lose not necessarily property tax value, but sellability, that type of thing. So, I think we got to be concerned about the people, and like you are, Bruce. You're like gentle I am. I don't buy it. I don't see any progress. I hear the same song and dance every time he's come up here. So there's nothing has changed. Nothing. But I guess the concern is, what's our recourse? We just sit on it and just let it fall down eventually, or what?
Isn't the deadline the 16th?
the
Yeah.
deadline's the 16th, so here's a couple of things I'm concerned about. First, I don't think we gave them enough time. Now, I understand and I hear this from Sean A. all the time about my kids. You set boundaries,
Yep.
you set timelines, and you got to stick to them, or people don't take you seriously. But I don't think that 60 days was enough time to give this man to work on this property. I think 6 months would have been more appropriate. I think we gave the residents on Ripon every excuse in the book why it was taking us years and years to get a project done, that we set a timeline for them. We didn't commit to that. So I think we should be cautious and careful about, if I could go back in time, and I totally understand council wanting to stick to their guns when we set a date, but if I could go back in time, I would have voted against only giving him 60 days. The other thing, and these are my personal concerns, these aren't concerns of the entire council, is I don't like taking somebody's property and doing something with it. I did not run for office to do that. And it's clear that, Mr. Salyer, I think you got a lot on your plate, and I think you need to simplify your life a little bit. I agree with Councilman Sharp. A lot of your properties are in disrepair. I don't think you've been taking very good care of them. It's not my place to judge you on that, but I think that you did get yourself in this situation a little bit too.
Yes.
And I would hope that this might be a wake-up call about that. I do know some of your tenants, and the people that I know are not trashy people. They're working people that have jobs, but they do work minimum wage jobs. They don't make a lot of money. But absolutely, like Bruce said, this isn't your responsibility, but this is concerning. And then what you said about tenants, I agree with that too. Because guess what? You know how I met Penny Swan? I lived in a duplex with her downstairs. She lived upstairs. I think we had the cops over a couple times, didn't we, Penny? I think we did. So I understand that. And I do think you need to take better care of your property, but I don't think it's my friends and neighbors and constituents' responsibility that you don't take care of your properties. And I don't think that they should have to pay to tear your house down.
However, you're opening Pandora's box if we don't do something eventually. Because then you could get other landlords in here and saying, well, he got away with it, so there's no rules in place.
I serve at the will of my constituents and council. I will go, whatever you guys make the decision on, I don't want to vote for this, but I'm not going to disrespect whatever decision the council makes. So, Councilman Beer.
Marvin, did you say that you got a roofing contractor lined up?
Yeah, he pulled the permit today. He did, yes, he pulled, I called Alan's office at 4 o'clock so they could verify that I wasn't just saying that. He did pull it, and I paid him $6,000, and as soon as he gets done, I gotta pay him the other $6,000.
So you've already paid him $6,000?
Paid him $6,000, yes, that's correct.
Well, just, as far as Marvin's other properties, and council, I don't think we should concern ourselves. We're only concerned with 65 West.
Yeah.
And I tend to agree with Adam that we need to give people the opportunity to fix up the place. Now, granted, the city was probably negligent on maybe bringing forth this sooner, but
Yes, he did pull a permit today, and he's a licensed contractor.
I'm thinking that's, he's actually maybe not at council's, speed that we feel he should, but I think that's, a much better way to handle it, and give him a little bit more time.
How
That's-
much?
Councilman Briner?
I just want to echo what the mayor said. Marv is making progress. Like he said, he just pulled the permit for the roof today. You know, it's progress. I would rather him fix it himself than us pay taxpayer money to tear it down. We spent $200,000 to tear down a downtown building, and are we gonna get it back? So, I agree, we extend it, and we keep monitoring it. That's part of our jobs as being on council, you know, and I don't think we should take somebody's property.
Councilman Sharp?
We spent the $200,000 to tear that building down because it became our property and our responsibility, and we were liable for it. We got stuck with that building. If that building fell down and hit something, we'd have been responsible. That's why we had to step up and act on 2325 Broad Street. We got the baby put in our lap, we had to do something. With this, it just keeps going on, we're just gonna keep extending it, extending it, extending it. Is it gonna be next summer, we'll be back here again discussing with Marv, when's this house gonna be done? What's the timeline? That's what I wanna know, what is a fair timeline to say you can do this?
I mean, we set the timeline.
We
already
did.
set that.
Right.
So,
And now all of a sudden, the last minute, he's doing stuff. I mean, at the last minute.
No, listen, you're mistaken. You're talking, you don't know what you're talking about, because you've got a wall over there that didn't get covered up since the last time. Sometimes these contractors, they're busy right now, so they don't just jump. I mean, I called quite a few and never got a call back, honestly. And this guy, I happened to hit him up in my store, and he said he had, just was finishing a job. I said, well, I need to get going on this real quick, because I don't want the house tore down. And so he did, and he's gonna do it, and I paid him. So, I mean, they just don't jump like you act like they're gonna, they don't.
No, but I'm saying you did this today, the deadline's, the meeting's today, and at 4 o'clock, you pulled the
But
permit.
I called Rutz, I talked to Charlie Rutz, and he was supposed to get back with me, he never did get back. He got me back with me one time, and offered me $1 for the house.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Stuchel?
question, okay, I understand the concerns, and I'm kind of in Bruce's camp a little bit, because this will come back. I mean, I oversee a number of employees. I would have fired this guy a long time ago. But the issue is, okay, we give him more time, and like Bruce said, what's more time? But we just deny this proposal on in front of us, and come May, June, July, August, September next year, and it's still a dilapidated building sitting there. I guess my question is, what's the next step for us if we give him more time?
Councilman Morrissey?
Is it legal to amend it to extend the time?
Yeah.
Is it legal?
Yes,
Is that
it's
your
legal
question?
to extend the time.
Legal to amend it to extend the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yep.
So,
I understand there's council members not as patient as I am on here. I'm sorry for cutting you off, Councilman Morrissey. Would you like to?
I'm just saying, if it's legal to extend the time, does someone have a suggestion about how far that should be?
Yeah.
What do you think, Mr. Stuchel?
Well, yeah, I mean, we know how this vote's gonna go, so let's keep him on the hook, and let's extend the time, and I'm willing to go midsummer, so he's got no weather issues, whatever, because there's gonna be, let's just take every excuse out of the book we can think of, because he's gonna redo his roof, well, it's gonna snow in a few weeks, okay? And I mean, he's not gonna be able to put the roof on, we know that. You and I work in the blue collar world. We know what responsibility is all about. I'm not to these gentlemen, don't get me wrong, but you're given a timeline, you gotta get the job done, you gotta do it. So I say we
Yeah, but
go,
if you're given a timeline to get the job done.
I say, let's go
couldn't-
July 4th. Let's go July 4th, July, Independence Day, and just say, here we go. And then after that, we'll,
First is my birthday.
okay, I like that better then. I mean, I'll even go August 1st, and that way he's got the whole summer.
Now, the other thing is, I notice in this resolution that you haven't been in touch with the city attorney's request to follow up on this.
Yeah, well, I didn't wanna sign that agreement to say that I would have it tore down. That was, their agreement to me was that I would sign the paper to have it torn down by the 16th.
look, if we're gonna extend this deadline, we want some paperwork on this.
Yeah, that's fine.
Pretty firm paperwork on it,
Is-
and with your signature on it.
That's fine.
Ms. Thompson, do you have
For
suggestion here?
purposes of clarification, the contract that was proposed merely indicated the deadline that council gave, and it's an agreement on behalf of Mr. Salyer that if he did not complete the work by that deadline, it would authorize or allow the city to come in and perform the work and charge it against his property. It didn't say that the city had to do that. It simply gave us his permission, in effect, to do that without having to go through more processes to get that. So that's all that contract relates to.
Doesn't that mean doesn't mean that it would get torn down by November 16th if it didn't do it?
It means that you would agree that if you didn't do it by that time, the city could come in and do it without having to go through any further steps.
That's why I
to get
didn't sign it, because I didn't want to do that. I want to try to fix it.
That was the resolution of the council. So that's up to you if you still want to pursue that.
July 1st?
Go for your birthday.
So I move we extend the deadline to July 1st, amend this resolution.
Support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey to extend the deadline to July 1st in the resolution and pass it as amended. Councilman,
Do we want to change the verbiage, or do we want to do a new resolution? We change the verbiage in that?
I'm sorry, change your resolution?
Do we want to do a new
do we
resolution?
want to just deny the resolution, or do we want to?
What you would be doing is amending your prior resolution. So the resolution you adopted a few meetings back, I think whenever it was in September, what you would do is simply amend the date from that resolution. So that resolution gave to the November 16th date. That's really all you would need to do is just amend that to extend the deadline. You wouldn't need the resolution the resolution that you have in front of you, I think, is the one from that was presented last meeting at Mr. Mackey's request. That's an entirely different thing. You don't need to deal with that tonight if you're just simply going to extend the deadline.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey to extend the deadline to July 1st, 2020, seconded by Councilman Stuchel. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Salyer, you've got till July 1st, 2020. I can pretty much guarantee Councilman Sharp's going to be probably driving past the property and checking in on
I
things.
don't have
So,
to drive past it, trust me, I just look out my window.
Yeah,
I
thank
see
you. I'll have it done.
thank you, sir.
Thank you.
One other thing, Mr. Salyer,
Yes.
feel free to come down to my house and visit with me anytime you feel. I live at 80 Westwood Street.
Okay.
I would love to have time to sit there and talk with you. I'm not your enemy.
I didn't really appreciate you calling me on social media. What'd you call me? You called me.
Social media?
Yeah, there was a post on Hillsdale Daily News that I thought, and then maybe I've got it wrong, and if I do, I'm sorry, but I thought it come from you, and it said that I was a con artist. But that wasn't from you? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought it was. I was informed that it was, so I'm sorry. I'll come down and I'll work with you and I'll show you the place, and I will have it done by July
I've
1st.
been over to your property quite a few times in the last week, just walking around it and looking and stuff. And there was a cat on your second floor.
Okay. Well, there wasn't on Sunday when we worked on the windows, honestly.
Call the fire department, get it out.
No, we don't need to go up the tree. But yeah, please feel free to come down because I want to see that progress being made on that house.
It will, I promise. July 1st, plenty is more than fair time, and I've got the money set aside now, so I'll start working forward on it. And thank you.
Seeing as how our code enforcement seems concerned with rodent harborage, I think the cat's probably a prudent thing to have in the house.
I'm sure it's not the only thing that's in the house, though.
Finally, before we move on, I just want to say, Alan and Kim, I hope you guys don't see our decision as any disrespect towards the work that you guys do every day, because you guys are doing exactly what you're supposed to do. That's what you get paid to do, and we appreciate what you do. So,
As I understand completely, you have your own, we bring it to you because we've run out of options on our end with what we're authorized to do.
okay.
So And all of us, our ultimate goal is to see these properties fixed. We don't want to tear anything down either, but if there's no progress being made, we have to move forward.
Okay, thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
We'll move into new business. Item A, set a public hearing for commercial rehabilitation exemption 3883 West Carlton Road, Olmsted LLC. Clerk's office is in receipt of a application for rehabilitation exemption certificate for property located at 3883 West Carlton. That's owned by Olmsted LLC. The application is for tax abatement on the rehabilitation of the former Silos Fun Park. The property was originally developed as part of the Scoville Brothers feed mill and grain elevator, with construction at this location completed in 1958. Project has an estimated cost of $100K to $150K to update the arcade building to include event space and concessions, and to rehabilitate the grain elevator building and attached silos for attraction venues. Property in question lies within our Rehabilitation District Number 1, created in 2009, amended in 2019. Current value of the property is estimated by the assessor at about $287,600. And the grain elevator building is currently in a blighted condition and has not been occupied in decades. So we got to hold a public hearing, guys. So staff recommends we set the public hearing for November 18th, 2019. Any discussion or a motion to set the public hearing?
So moved.
Support.
I'll give this one to Councilwoman Pratt. Motion on the floor from Councilman Briner, seconded by Councilwoman Pratt, to set a public hearing for commercial rehabilitation exemption certificate for 3883 West Carlton Road, Olmsted LLC. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. We will move on to item B, Neighborhood Enterprise Zone New Facility Tax Exemption Certificate for 10 Windswept Lane. Wow, I didn't know there was a street in Hillsdale I was unfamiliar with. Okay, that makes sense. Hillsdale County ISD. Let me get to this here. Clerk received an incomplete application for an NEZ New Facility Tax Exemption Certificate from Hillsdale County Intermediate School District on August 12, 2019. The property is located in the Three Meadows subdivision and was deeded to the ISD by the Hillsdale Economic Development Corporation on July 29, 2019. This is to be the third spec home built by the ISD Building Trades Education Program within Three Meadows. The first was started at 310 Hidden Meadows Drive in 2015, and the completed house sold 9/26/2017 for $235,000. The second is located at 316 Hidden Meadows Drive and was started in 2017. The completed house sold 8/1/2019 for $237,900. Permits for the proposed project at 10 Windswept Lane were pulled 8/27/2019. They are estimating the cost at $250,000 and plan to complete the project in 2 years. The recommendation is the Three Meadows Architectural Control Committee reviewed the plans, approved the project. Application was not forwarded to EDC for review, so staff recommends approval for 10 years based on the policy adopted by Hillsdale City Council on October 6, 2008. Any discussion? Councilman Sharp?
Yeah, I'm gonna vote no on this. I'm tired of giving away tax breaks to homes of this size and value when we just went after a person here trying to fix his house up. I think we should consider looking at that as giving them breaks on fixing their house up, finding a way that we could give them a tax break and giving them some kind of reward for doing it. These homes you're talking about is $250,000 home, so you're talking about $5,200 in tax money before they would get a tax break. Now it's going to be about $2,200 with a tax break. I'm right in that ballpark figure, so that's quite a drop and chunk of change, about a $3,000 difference. And I've just gotten to the point where enough's enough. I pay my taxes on my home, and 85% of the people in this town, we're only allowed 15% of the NEZ properties, according to, if I'm correct on that.
That's correct, sir.
So 85% of the people are going to pay for it. So there's got to be a place in here that's going to say enough's enough. And I'm just not going to support this anymore. Enough's enough. I will support businesses anytime for tax breaks because we should encourage businesses to grow here. And that creates jobs. and revenue for the city. This, on the other hand, is just catering to the people that could afford these homes. Do they really need a tax break? That's my question.
I tend to agree with you, Councilman Sharp. I'm tired of approving these too. The only moral conundrum I get into is that we've approved so many of them in the past, and then it seems unfair to the people that have already gotten them, the people in the future that won't
When
get
do you
'em.
draw the line and say enough's enough?
Good, very good point, sir.
Well, may I answer that question? You know, we definitely have a family housing issue in this community. We need more family homes. And these are just a short-term fix. The long-term gain is the home is there for a long time. 50 years it's gonna be there. So after a few years, those taxes go back up. So in the long game, we win by encouraging people to build $250,000+ homes in our community. Because we're gonna create that market, we're gonna create higher income people that wanna come here, live here. And, I mean, it's a short-term issue for a long-term gain.
I respect your opinion.
Councilman Beer?
Now, this is being built by the ISD Building Trades Education Program.
That's correct, sir.
Now, are these buildings, like, do they actually have a buyer in mind when they're building them?
Boy, I don't know the question to that.
No. They basically build them and does the ISD program make any money from building them?
My understanding of the way the ISD handles their homes, they build them without any specific buyer in mind. Once the home is completed, then they do a short, like 30-day window where they accept all bids, and then whoever bids the highest during that 30-day window, that's who ends up with the house. And then that money goes back into the building trades program so that they can start the next house.
And then on the tax portion of it, it's for 10 years. The first 5 years is half.
For 7 years.
First 7 years is half.
Half of the statewide average.
Half the statewide average at that.
Mhm.
And then at the 10th year, or would be the 11th.
The 7th year, it starts to phase in, so they still get a reduction on the city and county portion of the taxes. The school goes on at full rate in the 7th year. And then the 8th year, it phases up a little bit, and the 9th year, it phases up a little bit more, and the 10th year, it's at the full.
I have a question and a comment. The question is, if the owner sells that home within 10 years, what happens?
The new owner can apply to transfer the deed.
To continue on for,
Yeah.
but it's just for that 10-year window?
Right, the
Okay.
10 years is from the date it was built,
Okay.
not.
Okay. And then my statement is, again, we are offering a skilled trade an education opportunity for young men and women, a great trade here to learn how to build homes. I mean, we want to encourage that. I mean, not only it's an educational process as well. This is not a developer, so to say.
No, that's correct. Councilman Starp.
My son was in the skilled trades classes, and they didn't build them at Windswept. They built them out there by Balby's Lake. So they didn't get a tax break on that home, but they did. That's where he got his training from skilled trades. So right now they're over at Three Metals.
Hmm.
They can move around. That's just, I'm just
I
making
know.
that point. It was over there, so.
Councilman Beer.
I'd have to agree with Councilman Stuchel on this as far as it is it's a short-term sacrifice on taxes for the long-term gain of getting, nicer homes going up in Hillsdale.
Any more questions for Kim as long as we have her up at the podium? Councilman Briner?
I just got a comment, this house gets built, it's gonna be there for 100 years. Giving them 7 years at a tax break to gain 93 years of more taxes. I'm for it.
Any more discussion? Councilman Sharp.
Just too bad we couldn't get him over there on 58 and 60 West Street, fixing those 2 units or those houses up.
That's a neighborhood enterprise zone, isn't it?
It is.
Where's it at?
The opportunity's there for somebody.
Yeah, it's there.
So
Any more discussion, guys? Entertain a motion to adopt the resolution approving, sounds like, the application for the Neighborhood Enterprise Zone Tax Exemption Certificate.
So moved.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Briner, seconded by Councilman Veer. May I please have a roll call vote, City Clerk?
Councilperson Morrissey,
Yes.
Sharp,
No.
Stuchel,
Yes.
Pratt,
Yes.
Mayor Stockford,
Yes.
Councilperson Briner,
Yes.
and Veer.
Yes.
You have 6-1 approved. It's resolution 3396.
Thank you, Katie. And we will move on to item C, street sweeper engine replacement. Public Services Director Hamel.
Well, I'll keep this fairly short because it's pretty straightforward, but bottom line is we lost the engine in the street sweeper. The truck actually has two engines on it. It has one to operate all the mechanisms and one to drive it. This is the drive engine that allows it to go. We lost it this summer and realized that, we did some shopping around, got some pricing. As you see in here, these machines are north of $250,000, far north of $250,000. We also explored options with rentals, and you're looking at over $10,000 a month to rent the thing. So when the quotes came in at $20,000 a piece, or around $20,000 to replace the engine, had a little conversation with DPS mechanics and said, hey, this thing's going to go longer than 2 months, so it makes sense to put an engine in it. We think we can get 2 or 3 more years out of it, so we think it makes sense to do that at this time. DPS has bigger equipment needs than a street sweeper at this point, and I don't want to set us back 2 or 3 years on our other equipment by buying a new machine at this time when it's still fairly functional machine, barring the engine replacement.
Councilman Briner?
Is a new street sweeper on the 10-year capital improvement plan?
It is. I couldn't tell you where it's at right off the top of my head, but it is in there. I think we had it pushed out a little farther, maybe 6 years-ish, if I recall. I can't remember. It's been a while since February or March when we put that together.
Any more questions for Jake? Well, sounds like a definite need. So,
I will note the low bid came in as a local with Tri-State. You'll see on there. There's an added benefit with that one also. We won't have to incur any towing fees. We can handle getting the sweeper out there locally to get that work done. And I know BPU has used that particular mechanic in the past with good luck or good success that I know of. So we're pretty comfortable using that local source.
awesome. Any more discussion? Entertain a motion to approve the purchase of the street sweeper or the engine replacement for the street sweeper at a cost of $18,259.55.
So moved.
Support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey, seconded by Councilman Stuchel. May I please have a roll call vote, City Clerk?
Councilperson Sharp,
Yes.
Stuchel,
Yes.
Pratt,
Yes.
Mayor Stockford,
Yes.
Councilperson Briner,
Yes.
Veer,
Yes.
and Morrissey.
Yes.
All approved, 7-0.
Thank you, Katie. We will move on, since we have no miscellaneous reports, we will move on to general public comment. During this time, all the same rules apply. Please limit your time to 5 minutes. Please limit your trips to 1 to the podium. State your name if you like. Understand per our council rules, we will not answer any questions directly while the speaker is at the podium. And the podium's now open.
Couple comments about the NES. Did I hear Kim say right that takes away from our public schools? I mean, I don't think our public schools should be losing any money. We need that money for our public schools, number one. And number two, if you're going to do the NES and there's only 15% allowed, it should be spread equally through the boards. We do have what's called a neighborhood improvement act. I don't see anybody doing anything about that to help Mr. Salyer out or any of the other elderly people out in this town. I mean, it's not like you help bring great jobs or lobby for great jobs. I mean, we got a lot of people up to college that lobby for things they want, but we don't got anybody lobbying for jobs. Next thing is, my wife mentioned about down there behind Burger King and the railroad tracks, how Tent City. What about those people? What are they going to do for the winter? Aren't we? I mean, look at California, for God's sakes. Aren't you guys going to start making some ordinances on them? We need to find a place for them. We need a community center. I don't think Miss Veer wants to put up the homeless. And then when Bruce Sharp was talking about Melvin, what's his other properties got to do with the demolition? You know, you're trying to make the guy look like he's. I just don't get it. You know, we weren't here to talk about his other properties. It was about the demolitions. You're just trying to destroy his character. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Any more public comment?
I actually have a screenshot of the conversation Bruce had with Bill Zeiser on the Hillsdale Daily News, and I'll read it. Bill, I did homework on him, and he's a con artist with no intentions of fixing this house. How do you think Matt would act if this house was in his neck of the woods? He is plain, just an opinion. So, you did call him a con artist.
Not the Daily News.
Yes, it was on the Daily News.
Thanks, Penny.
I don't like to see council people lying.
City signs. I noticed the one on Bacon Street is like a little sign. The one on South Hillsdale is the same way. If the city is gonna let people buy signs for their cities coming into the city, then they should have to put them on all incoming streets. I mean, like I said, South Hillsdale Road has a little old tin sign, so does Bacon. I guess I don't know why those people are any lower than the people that live on State Street or come in on State Street or North Hillsdale Street. I mean, if we're gonna do signs, let's do them all, not just the ones we picked to do. I mean, if somebody's gonna put in a bid to do that, then let them do them all. 24 and 25 Broad Street, or whatever you wanna call it, wasn't dumped on the city. The city bid and bought it. They didn't have to buy it, they did because they wanted to. I know it was only $75, but they did bid on it at the county auction. It belonged to the county, it did not belong to the city. So they took it on themselves to buy it. I don't think it's right that you're gonna cobble up Mr. Dixon's building because you don't wanna spend the money to fix that wall the way it should have been when it was tore down and his roof line up there. Talking about police calls, I would like to see the number of police calls for Beacon Hill. I mean, that's one business, that's one property owner, or the one on Bar Street. You can't compare how many times the police come someplace. I mean, you just can't do that and judge the landlord by that. If that's the case, Beacon Hill and Bar Street would be out of this city for sure, because you know they're up there all the time. My other question was like the streets. I know the college paid for the street or whatever, paid the contractor, whatever, however that was supposed to have went down. I'm not sure how it went down, but does that set a precedence where if I wanted to pave in front of my house and I had the insurance and everything, could I do that? Did that set a precedence for that? I mean, if you allow one person to do it and they've got all the stuff and somebody else comes in and says, well, I got the money, I can do it too, can you tell him no? Or can you go ahead and let him do it? I mean, it's gonna benefit the city if you did. I mean, if I lived, whatever street that is up on Spring Street there, I'd probably call somebody to come in and put gravel down and gravel in front of my house, because there's more gravel there than there is tar on that stretch. But I just think, you know, with what Penny said and stuff, I know how it went down about the guy at the airport and how you guys cried about how bad he was being treated, but yet you do the same thing to Marv. Marv, as long as I've known Marv, he's always worked 2 jobs plus had a business on the side. He is a worker. I don't care what anybody thinks about him or anything. He's a worker, and he's always been that way. I've known him for probably 25 years. He's gonna do that house, and then we're gonna see what side the mouth you guys are laughing out of when he gets it done. So, thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Any more public comment? Seeing none, I'll close the podium. Mr. Mackey cannot be with us tonight. He asked if it was okay if he went to his daughter's volleyball game, and I think we are all in agreement that that sort of stuff's very important, and it was the last one of the year, so that's where he's at tonight. So we'll have no city manager report. We'll move into council comment. Anything to say, council members? Councilman Sharp?
To respond to the comment from the gentleman, establishing a pattern here, that's all that was, to show there was consistency here with the concerns with the police being at that place. That was all that was. Whether I was picking on him or not, it doesn't matter. That house is in my neighborhood. If it was in your neighborhood, you'd be bothered too. I believe he will try and do the right thing and get the job done. I hope that's the process, because I'm going to be watching it. It's in my neighborhood. I don't like seeing it. It's just been very frustrating dealing with this whole situation for the last few months we have been going on. This house has been there for 2 years in that condition. Very frustrating. The neighborhood's it's run down because of that. We want to improve our neighborhoods, get rid of the blight in this town. We want to improve this town, and I believe that's a step in the right direction. I don't want to tear it down. I just want to see it get fixed. 2 years is a long time to have it sit there. That's my point.
Thank you, Councilman Sharp. Any more comment? Councilman
I
Stuchel?
just want to, the Civil Air Patrol at the airport hit its 1-year anniversary, and they have 20 members. Their senior membership staff is well established. They've gotten great support from the community and Hillsdale College, and they are in the process of putting together a color guard. And with that, they will be glad to do their public service and honors, present the colors to different public events, public meetings, whatever. And they have secured a van. One of their senior members is in the process of getting his pilot license, and once that happens, they have the opportunity of getting an airplane. So,
awesome.
1 year and growing, so it's been a good program.
That's awesome,
So thank
Councilman
you for everybody's
Stuchel.
help.
Yeah, I've been to a couple events out there, including your daughter's graduation
Yep.
from it. Very cool stuff.
It is really cool stuff.
Can't wait till my kids are old enough to participate.
12 years old.
Any more council comment? Councilman Briner?
I know I probably will get a little bit of a backlash from council and maybe some city employees on this, but leaves. I've been called numerous times already this year about leaves and pickup. The first pickup was too early, and I totally agree with everybody because leaves didn't start coming down until that week before, and I'm sorry I don't have time to rake during the week. So when Saturday rolled around, I didn't have any leaves raked up or bagged or anything like that. I think Modern Waste is going to have a lot of work when they do their second leaf pickup, and that's if people rake their leaves. I know everybody else has driven around, and I mean I don't see many clear yards of leaves. So I think it's something maybe we should put back. Maybe put it on the next agenda, talk about. I just think it's not working. We need to think of something else, whether it's buying bags and letting people, come pick them up somewhere, or maybe we look at how much it's going to cost to do a compost site. And get some estimates on that figure. Maybe reach out to State of Michigan. I'm sure we're not the only community that's having issues with it. So maybe we can go to our congressman and maybe try to get something changed at a state level for the compost and the rules and regulations on it. We need to think of something else. So that's my comment on that. And then also too, I want to say the Exchange Club of Hillsdale, I was on the radio this morning with Don Sanderson. They do a Book of Golden Deeds award that they give an award to members of the community that volunteer. And this year, Christy Gauchi and Trinity Bird from the Sauk Theater over in Jonesville will be awarded the Book of Golden Deeds from the Exchange Club. That will be at Johnny T's next door, November 14th, so a week from Thursday. If you want to RSVP, you can call Don Sanderson. Let's see here at phone number. Hold on. 517-439-1386. It's $20 per person, and I put flyers on each of the council members' location. So, with that being said, that's all I had.
Awesome. I'll, you know what, Councilman Reiner, I will call Mayor Dobies in Jackson and talk to him, because Jackson, they went from picking up leaves like we did to not picking up anybody's leaves at all to doing them bagged, and now they're going back to picking them up the way we used to. So we'll see.
Not quite correct. They bought 2 sweeper suckers. They got a good deal on it for $640,000. It's going to take them 10 years to pay it back, what they figured it out. But that's what they looked at. I've got the Jackson paper where the article was, because I knew this was going to come up eventually.
Sure.
So I saved that article so when people could see it. $640,000. And then you still got the question, where are you going to put the leaves? Once you suck them all up, where are they going to go? Because the whole issue became because the DEQ was threatening us, they're going to make us put a compost site in, well, it's going to have to be turned and everything, and then there's going to be the dollar figure involved in that. So yeah, maybe we should look at the dollar figure to see how much it is. Then ask the taxpayers, streets or the compost site, what do you want done first?
How did this country ever make it this far?
It's just, I knew this was going to come up, so when I seen that article, I said, I'm saving that baby.
No, I'm
Thank you, Ray.
open to more discussions on it, guys. All right, well, before we adjourn, I got something real quick. It's going to seem incredibly childish to you guys, but I'm going to bring it up. We got these flyers on our table for the holiday reception. Now, this is what's called the mayor's reception. When Mayor Sessions was here, it was the mayor's reception. When Doug Moon was here, it was the mayor's reception. When the boy mayor, Mayor Sessions, was mayor, it was the mayor's reception. Greg Bailey, Doug Ingalls. For the past 100 years, this has been the mayor's reception. To me, this is passive aggressive that this says the holiday reception on it. The last couple years, I've been trying to get more involved in the mayor's reception. Why? Because it's called the mayor's reception. So I thought that not entitled me, but it was a duty, a responsibility to get involved with it. All of a sudden, for the first year ever, this is called the holiday reception. Why? To me, this is passive aggressive. I don't know who made this decision, but this is the mayor's reception, not the holiday reception. No, I don't need applause, Penny. Thank you. But anyways, there's no further comment. I will and I'll risk sounding childish, because that does sound childish. I agree. But I think that this is childish too. So
I look forward to attending the mayor's reception.
thank you, Councilman Forsey.
I'll be there, Bear.
Is it the same day this one is?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey, seconded by Councilman Sharp to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.